Welcome to Sports Charlotte, the podcast about sports in Charlotte. My name is Herb White. I'm editor-in-chief at the Charlotte Post. And as usual, right alongside is Cameron Williams, staff reporter and ardent Duke fan. So we're not going to talk about the Final Four, but we are going to give Duke props before we move it along. So how you doing today?
Oh, good. It's been a long week, but a short week, if that makes any kind of sense. It's like it's gone by really fast, but it's felt long in places. So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, after a while, they all kind of pile on. It's just the way it goes in this business. But that like we talked about, basketball is still with us. The Final Four is in Texas, and a lot of the national attention is there. But since this is Sports Charlotte and not Sports San Antonio, we're gonna keep it local today. Um, Final three games at Spectrum Center for the Hornets will take place over the next 5 days or so. They have 19 wins and 6 games to get to 20. How confident are you that they will get to 20?
Do they want to get to 20 is the big question. I know a story I'm gonna be working on here over the weekend is going to be centered more on looking at the season as a whole and just why do the Hornets want to win anymore? They're The Hornets have bad enough draft lottery luck, so give yourself as good of a chance as any to get that number one overall pick because this year, I think more so than years in the past, other than maybe Wembanyama, you're going to be able to get a player in Cooper Flagg that is very franchise altering. Just does everything for his current team, the Duke Blue Devils, and I think he can. I think his game translates well. You see a lot of college guys that I know your favorite saying is college stud, NBA dud, blah blah blah. Well, I just don't see that with Cooper. I didn't see it with Wembanyama. There have been some number one overall picks. So I'm like, okay, and then they turn out to not be so great. But I think any team that's in that bottom five, six, 17, they want to lose as many games as possible the rest of the way. So, will the Hornets be trying tonight against Sacramento? I'm going more so for that free turkey sandwich, but more than anything. But can they get another win or two? Sure. I mean, Chicago, Memphis, Toronto, not great teams. I mean, they go back to back to close the season with Boston. I don't see them winning either of those, but I don't think they want to. Um, no coach is going to say, well, just don't go out there and try your best, but they might not be hustling 100%. I'll put it that way.
Well, I see your logic. However, the folks who actually have to play the games are looking probably at it a different way because some of them are playing for their careers or new contracts or just whatever. I mean, they're professionals, or at least you hope they are. Uh, but now, can a coach set them in a position where it's more difficult to win? Absolutely. That's already happened for the Hornets. No LaMelo Ball or Brandon Miller, and that's been the case for a while. So their best players outside of Miles Bridges, who I think has just been a revelation. That's just me. Those best guys are not going to be on the floor. So they're going to have to figure out a different way of getting to that 20th win. And I think also credit to Mark Williams as well. Yeah. After all that's happened to him, I think he has bounced back in a major way. And he's gonna do well somewhere going forward. Might not even be Charlotte, since the trade that was rescinded revealed kind of what the Hornets thinking it is in terms of playing centers. May not be enough room for all these guys now. So if they try to deal somebody now, who's most likely to get dealt? I would imagine it's still going to be Mark Williams. So
Yeah.
he's putting work on video for other teams to check out. So can they get to 20? If they don't get it at home, I don't think they're going to get it because you're not that far removed from what what's it called? The spring fever, where
Mm.
you're in college or high school and the days are dwindling towards graduation, summer break, you can't wait to get out of there. So I think if you're an NBA team, whether you're a player or a coach, you probably have spring fever. Season's a dud, and it's not going to get any better. Go home, play golf, get ready for the next season or whatever it is you're going to do next, and that'll be that. So,
What about the Raptors game? I mean, if you look at the games they've got at home, it's Sacramento tonight, they're a 12-point underdog.
yeah,
Chicago, who scores as best as anybody in the league as far as total points per game, and then Memphis and John Morant, and they won't have LaMelo Ball on the floor still because he shut down the rest of the season. But I mean, if you base it on record and how teams match up, I mean, I think Toronto might be as good of a chance to win one as any.
that's no guarantee though,
Well,
because
nothing's guaranteed for Charlotte Hornets, but
19 wins, that tells you a lot. It may not tell you everything, but it tells you everything you need to know.
and real quick before we pivot from the Hornets, if say you do get the first pick and you're able to get Cooper Flagg, where does he fit into this team? Because you sung Miles Bridges' praises, and that's pretty much the same spot that Cooper plays, and you're not going to take a kid number one overall for him to sit the bench.
Mhm.
And ideally, you don't want to take anybody towards the upper part of the first round and sit him on the bench or even have him on your G League team. Call T. John Salon. But where does he fit in your opinion on this team?
He's a starter, and I would have absolutely no problems bringing Miles Bridges off the bench.
What if you
That
shifted?
improves that it improves the Hornets. It improves the bench. It improves the starting five.
Well,
And
with Cooper being 6'9", 3 inches taller, why not shift Miller to the two, Bridges to the three, insert Cooper at the four, obviously Melo at point guard, and then Williams or whoever is at center at center.
yeah, well, either way, uh, he could be your three, he could be your four, and somebody comes off the bench. Your bench is automatically improved by bringing him in. So
Yeah.
now sit him? No. If he's going to be the first overall pick, and if the Hornets ever have that kind of luck, they nuts to sit him.
Yeah, right now I think there's a three-way tie at 14% to get that number one overall pick. That's why, in my opinion, you want to lose these last 5, 6 games.
And
You
we're
want to
talking
improve
about the
your
Hornets.
odds.
Yeah, but we're talking about the Hornets. They never have that kind of luck. Now they've been
Well,
second a bunch or third, but first, yeah, they haven't been first in quite some time. And if you're talking about the Hornets getting that generational talent with the first pick, think about the dudes that they've missed out on. You um,
Wembanyama.
yeah, Shaquille O'Neal. Although they did get Alonzo Mourning, which was pretty good,
Okay,
but
that's like
but it goes back to my point. You know, you could have had the most dominant big man in his era, and you wound up with Alonzo Mourning, which is no slouch, but it's not like he played his entire career in Charlotte either. So
mhm.
the Hornets have a rather sketchy history when it comes to bad teams winning out in the lottery as opposed to, let's say, San Antonio, which always seems to get the better end of the stick. So now, I wouldn't, I'm not prognosticating anything, but the Hornets aren't going to get a first pick. History tells us this. It's like, yeah, they'll probably wind up second, and they'll hopefully get a very serviceable player, somebody who might even make an All-Star game or two. But
Yeah, I mean, Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey both from Rutgers. I mean, they're solid players. So I think right now there's a definite gap between the first pick and the second pick, similar to when Wembanyama was drafted. I mean, no knock on Brandon Miller, but there's a significant gap between just the overall skill level of Wembanyama and Miller. And
yeah,
I think that's what you're seeing in this year's draft. Um, who knows? The Hornets could pull a New York Jets and win like four out of the last however many and end up not getting in the top three. But that would be a Charlotte Hornets thing to do.
yeah, that would be so Charlotte.
Like
But
wait till the end when
but
you're
who's
not
to,
playing for anything.
yeah, I mean, but then you have that argument. Well, maybe Janai Broome could be a really good professional as well.
Mm-mm.
That's the thing about the draft. I don't care if it's the NBA, the NFL, Major Leagues. It's all a crapshoot.
That
But
man's about to draw AARP. Mm-mm.
prospects. But it's all about prospects. So if if you have a chance to nab the very best prospect, you know, you take him and you play him because it does translate, at least from the visuals now, it does translate at two positions, 3 and 4. And if he were to wind up with the Hornets, and I know the national media folks, oh, that would be such a disaster. Well, you got to start somewhere. And if the Hornets luck up and win that first overall pick, it might be a disaster, but you take him anyway. You need to put in some building blocks to help him out. But you have a point guard. If he's healthy, he'll help you there. Because also Cooper Flagg is a very good passer. Uh, Brandon Miller, I think, is going to come back even better. Even though that second year was curtailed, he showed enough promise to be, he's somebody who's going to be better than solid. So, yeah, if the Hornets can finally catch a break and get that first overall pick, it's and besides, it's going to be good for business. People will actually show up to watch Cooper Flagg.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And it'll
There is
be
that.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the Hornets do these last couple games. But to kind of put a bow on this, since I know Zoom has us on a time limit, um, I don't think you're trying to win these last six. At least if I'm Gabe Plotkin or Rick Chanel, I'm telling Charles to coach a little lightly because you want if you've had this rough of a season, you want the best overall pick you can get. And I know it's got a lot to do with the lottery and bad luck happens, but give yourself the best odds. That's all the Hornets can do at this point. So that's
Yeah.
all I got to say.
Yeah, well, they got odds, all right. They're just anyway. Yes, let's move on to another basketball story. Nik Graves, who is now a former Charlotte 49ers guard, has announced that he intends to sign with Creighton, and that's another blow to the 49ers basketball program. But I guess the upside of that is they're developing talent that other people want.
Yeah, they've been doing that for a while. Um, I know we've talked about it on the pod before, just about how many players have gone on to other places and been very successful. I mean, Bryce Williams is probably the best player on Nebraska's team this year. Lakai Patterson getting really good minutes with Minnesota. Igor Milicic made the Elite Eight with Tennessee, and Deshaun Jackson was in the NCAA tournament with Iowa State. And so you got all these players that have transferred in or started their careers at Charlotte. Most out of the ones I just said, only I think it was just Bryce that started with Charlotte, but nonetheless, Nik Graves also started his career at Charlotte. They're leaving because just there's no NIL money, and I hear it from the fans all the time. Well, how do you expect us to donate if we don't see any promise and this, that, and the other? I'm like, well, that's just the chicken and the egg. You're not gonna get one without the other, and it's gonna be a issue that goes on and on and on if money just doesn't start coming into the program. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm happy for Nick. He did what he could for Charlotte this past season, and for at least from the numbers that have been floating around, he's making pretty good money. Um,
Yeah.
Creighton obviously has the money to give out, so good for him.
But now that does bring up a question because Creighton doesn't play in an FBS uh, football conference.
Hmm.
It's the mid-major by definition. Uh, you know, it's the Big East, yes, but it's not a football conference.
Yeah, they're known for basketball for sure.
Yeah. So why is it that Creighton can have the money to pay this dude and Charlotte doesn't?
Well, you said it. They don't care about football. You got
Okay,
all
it's
you got
simple.
all these schools that are competing in FBS conferences, and that they want to divvy out their money more so to football because that's what is ultimately going to return revenue. And so, I mean, you see it more so with this signing than most. I mean, I've heard numbers over $400,000 he's getting to go to Creighton. It's like Charlotte don't have that kind of money to divvy out for football, much less basketball. So, like I said, good for him. I mean, if I had 400 grand dangling in front of me to say, here, come be our backup point guard, or who knows, he might start, but yeah, I'm taking the money and running. I mean, I think people would be amiss to judge him for leaving because they do the same thing.
Absolutely. Somebody, you know, my college days are silently behind me. But if somebody were to say, yeah, 400K, like, when do you want me to show up for this?
Right? So,
And whether it's a good investment or not, couldn't say. But yeah, I would be long gone if you're gonna dangle that kind of loot in front of me, unless somebody was talking about an even better figure.
yeah. And I mean, it's something that, like I said, you're going to continue to see because until Charlotte has some sugar mama or sugar daddy come and drop a bag for them to divvy up to players, there's just not enough money to go around to keep Deshaun Jackson, Nik Graves, a Lakai Patterson, a Bryce Williams all on the same team. It's just not feasible right now in this college landscape where everybody wants as much as they can get. Well, they're not going to get a ton at Charlotte right now. And as an alum, it hurts to say that because, of course, I want my alma mater to do as best as they can. But with no money in the age of NIL, it just ain't happening.
And that also forces coaches and administrators to do their jobs differently. I would imagine that as schools start to hire general managers to look out for the overall health of programs, that might be something that sooner or later it's going to come to even a place like Charlotte, where the idea is to put coaches and administrators together with the infrastructure needed to not only recruit these players, but to hang on to them because
Yeah.
you know schools that have deep pockets, they can switch people in and out pretty much on a whim. But if you are a budgeted program or budget limited program, not so much.
Yeah. Well, I guess as we kind of pivot a little bit on a more positive note, things are seeming to be on the lookup for the 49ers football team. Had a chance this week to chat with their quarterback trio that all transferred in. Connor Harrell from North Carolina, Grayson Loftus from Duke, and Zach Wilkie. I think it's Wilk. But if you read his name, you'll understand where his name ends with an E. But nonetheless, from Northwest Mississippi, a JUCO school. All three of them are kind of vying for that quarterback one spot. And Hurdle wanted to ask you, if you're Tim Alvin, knowing that he has ran kind of spread offenses in the past with a lot of option looks and things of that nature, if you've got two guys like Wilk and like Harold that can kind of do everything, but even Loftus, he was honest. He's like, yeah, I mean, I might not break one to the house, but I can do enough damage on the ground to be resourceful. But say he's the best arm in the room. If you're Tim Alvin, knowing your offensive system, who are you going to start?
I'm going to start the dude who, not necessarily as a runner, but a play extender.
Mhm.
So you don't necessarily have to have blazing speed to impact the passing game or the run game for that matter. If you look around at the NFL, you know, Lamar Jackson, as far as quarterbacks go, has blazing speed.
Yeah,
Patrick Mahomes, nobody's going to accuse him of being a sprinter, but he
he
finds ways,
extends plays.
he extends plays.
Yeah,
That's how you finally get that separation for receivers when plays break down and you keep it moving. So I don't necessarily buy into this thing of a dual threat quarterback being somebody who has great wheels. I look at it as, can somebody get a play extended when all else is breaking loose around him? Do you have good pocket awareness? Do you know when to escape and go pick up the yardage necessary for a first down when you absolutely positively have to have it? So, no, I'm not looking for somebody who is necessarily going to take it to the house every time he tucks and runs, even though that's great to have. But I would be okay with somebody who can just figure out a way to extend the play without getting me into trouble with turnovers. So you
yeah,
need to be aware of defenses. Uh, what are your reads looking like? How well do you read progressions? And can you keep those passes on schedule? I would be more interested in that in terms of the type of quarterback I would want behind center.
yeah. And it was neat too getting to talk with Todd Fitch, the new 49ers OC, associate head coach, and he's also the quarterbacks coach. And he says it's a good thing to have a deep quarterback room. And he wasn't saying that as to say, well, you can play multiple because Charlotte's seen that dumpster fire in the last few seasons, and I don't think that's the route they're going. Fitch was pretty clear that by the start of the season, they want to know which quarterback is going to be QB1. And not to say that the other guys aren't ready to step in, say, because he recognized injuries happen. If a guy goes down, he wants to have a clear second guy, third guy to step up in that spot. But he said one thing about all three of them that he's noticed is they're all very receptive to coaching. And it's not oftentimes that in the portal era, especially where you bring in three guys that are all just like eager to learn and unprompted to. When I was speaking with each of the quarterbacks, they all talked about enjoying learning from Todd Fitch and just knowing his history coaching several quarterbacks, some of them now in the NFL, and just knowing and understanding this guy knows what he's talking about and being a willing learner. And all three of them saying Fitch's praises. What's to say they're not, maybe trying to brown nose a little bit, but nah. I
Yeah,
think I think each of them were genuine in their responses. But Fitch says it really just starts with a quarterback's mindset. If they're willing to work, take information, take criticism, and all three of these guys have checked that box so far. So it's a good problem to have, but one that I'm sure that Albin and Fitch both will make sure to address and get the guy come August before they take on App State at Bank of America Stadium.
yeah. I think this is going to take a process
Oh
to
yeah.
find the one. And I understand it's important to have depth, especially at quarterback, because injuries happen. And these days, because college football, just like the NFL, people get hurt. And especially when you're running, and sometimes you get hurt in the pocket as well. So you're setting yourself up for a disaster if you don't have capable backups. Uh,
Hmm.
and if you're talking about Charlotte, you talk about the last few seasons, injuries have happened, quarterbacks have been ineffective, and you need to have somebody who can step in. The problem that the 49ers have had, though, is that they have not had enough capable people who have been available long enough to make a difference. Uh,
Hmm.
So that's why I certainly will buy into the saying if you have three quarterbacks that are kind of equal, you really have none because you're playing all of them and you can't develop that continuity in order to say our number one person gives us the best chance to win. If you say we got three of them, yeah, that's probably not the way it's not going to be well received because this group may have their favorite, and that group may
Mhm.
have their favorite, and somebody else has another favorite. But if it's like this is our one person who's going to give us week in and week out the best opportunities to win, I think everybody can get behind that person. And if Charlotte can get around to identifying this individual, that's when they will certainly take a leap forward, I would imagine.
And I think that's what they're trying to do. That's where they're going. But Fitch says it's like you mentioned already, it's a process. It's going to take some time because while all three of these guys can and maybe are equally as talented, they want to find that one guy. And so he's like, it's an authentic and kind of um, just genuine process that you have to go through, and it might take some time. But that's why I mean we're sitting here April 4th talking about a decision that needs to be made. Probably by the start of fall camp, I would say. But I mean, that's not till August, so they've got plenty of time. Um, and I'm sure they're going to go through the right process. But right now, I'll put you on the spot first, and then I'll go. I think we probably got the same answer. Out of Harold, Loftus, and Wilk, who you think's going to start?
Just throwing it out there based on what I've heard because I have not seen them with my own eyes. But from what I've heard about these three, I would say Loftus.
Oh, okay. So we don't have the same answer.
Yeah,
You're
well,
taking the Duke guy. I was
yeah,
gonna say Connor Harrell. I think just based on Albin's prior history and knowing, seeing some of the tape that he put on from Ohio, just knowing some of his schemes at offense, I think Harrell gives them the best kind of mobility. You talk about extending plays, talk about pulling the ball and running it, as well as making the right throws. I think he gives you all those things. Um, I'm surprised we had different answers there, but it just goes to show you it's going to be a battle and it's going to be a process because I mean you've got two people that cover the 49ers. I mean maybe myself more so, but saying things different. So it'll be interesting. But more football to talk about, more so on your expertise. Johnson C. Smith has a little bit of or a little scrimmage this week or weekend rather.
yeah. And the Golden Bulls will travel to Wingate to uh, take on the Bulldogs in a scrimmage, which is something that Division Two just got around to. Well, the NCAA allowing Division Two schools to do this a couple of years ago. Last year, the same two schools had a scrimmage, also at Wingate, and it was the first inkling that maybe Smith was on to something. In talking to Coach Maurice Flowers recently, he said, he credited that outing at Wingate with helping him get a better understanding, a better feeling for where that program was headed. And lo and behold, they turned out an 8-2 season. And to him, going back this year, hopefully we'll do the same thing in terms of the offense has been changed up a little bit in terms of the skill position folks, a new starting quarterback in Calvin Durham, and the running back crew outside of Quavaris Crouch, who's now a linebacker, or has been moved back to linebacker. Uh, that running back group is pretty much the same with Avante George and Kamaro Edmonds returning. So that group is still pretty much intact. The offensive line is pretty stable, and that defense has two new linebackers and we'll have a new defensive back on the corner. So now you're talking about an older, more experienced Smith team that's going to wing it. That I think will give us a good indication in terms of where Smith is, and because the transfer portal seemingly never closes, you might be able to pick up some stuff. Uh, in addition to losing some people, depending on how they fare in spring ball. So I love the idea of playing somebody in a different jersey, and maybe that's something that Division One and the FBS will ultimately look at instead of doing the old boring spring game and all that other business. But you know, in Division Two, you can have your spring game and scrimmage, and I think that's a great idea. Can't wait to get down there to Wingate. The weather should be good, and the football it'll be there.
Yeah, the only thing I got on this topic is I'm ready to get my pee back. Okay. We talked with Coach Flowers when we did our football 704 schedule release, and I think the Golden Bulls are poised to have as good, if not better, of a season this upcoming year. Got a lot of tough games on that schedule. If you hadn't checked out the episode of the football 704 schedule release, go do that. It's on our YouTube channel. Um, it's going to be a tough test. But I think testing yourself early in spring is good because you kind of get a feel for a few different things, and then you can adjust accordingly and get ready for August.
Yeah, but Wingate is not that far from Charlotte. It's over in Union County, next county over, and it's free if I'm not mistaken. So it's like if it's free, it's for me. It's a
Yeah,
go over and check out some spring football. But there's plenty of stuff to do, and we will get around to as much of it as we can.
as a two-man team, we do have a handful of stringers that do help us out a lot, but we get to as much stuff as possible. But with the 6 minutes we have left, what
Mhm.
are we looking forward to? Big weekend ahead.
Well, Smith-Wingate, and then there's also Charlotte FC is playing at 2:30 on Saturday, which is going to be a conflict that I can't resolve because I'm not going to be in Union and Mecklenburg counties simultaneously. But I'm looking forward to that. Charlotte is unbeatable at home and can't bust a grape on the road. So logic says they should be able to do pretty much what they need to do at home and get out of the bank with a win. So that would be the thing that I'm looking forward to. And also want to see the Hornets, whether they can get that 20th win or not. I mean, okay, they've been pathetic in terms of wins and losses, but can they get to 20?
Well, I will see if they can get to 20 tonight. Heading over to the Spectrum Center. It's gonna be a fun analysis piece. I'm gonna try to keep this one under 1,000 words, but there's a lot I could really rip them on. But I'll be nice. I'm gonna be a glass half full kind of guy. But the other thing I'm looking forward to, obviously, I couldn't go without saying it. The Final Four.
Hmm.
It's it's Saturday. Um, all four one seeds. A lot of people have varying opinions on this. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I know your opinion on it is there's a lot less parity. I mean, this has only happened twice. Only twice since seeding began has all four one seeds made the Final Four. And that was a pretty good Final Four in '08. I mean, you're talking about Memphis and UCLA, North Carolina, and Kansas. A lot of great NBA players came out of that Final Four, whether it be Kevin Love and Russell Westbrook and Derrick Rose, Mario Chalmers, who are going to be the next NBA greats that come out of this Final Four. Walter Clayton Jr. from Florida, really great player. Obviously, Cooper Flagg. You mentioned Janai Broome, LJ Cryer from Houston. There's a lot of great players. Who's going to be that next great NBA player? We'll find out, but it'll be a good couple of games on Saturday, and then Monday night is the championship.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to that as well. Um, you refer to 2008. Memphis is not necessarily the blue blood
No,
of that 2008 Final Four. All of these programs in 2025 are. You know, they're well financed, they're well coached, and they all have a truckload of talent. So it's like,
Auburn's a blue blood. Houston's a blue blood.
yeah,
Uh,
Houston has a really good basketball pedigree dating back to the 1960s.
Yeah, but blue blood.
Lewis, legendary coach, Elvin Hayes, legendary player. So I'm looking at the totality of the program in terms of, but now Houston is missing the one thing that those other schools have, a national title. But
And
it's,
so is Auburn.
huh?
So is Auburn.
Well, okay, yeah. Well,
You call Auburn, Houston
I
blue
forgot
blood.
about yeah. But in terms of name recognition,
No.
um, and maybe Auburn is the outlier here because it's a football school that doesn't necessarily have the basketball pedigree outside of Chuck Person and Charles Barkley.
Well, I mean, we forget Florida, besides having back-to-back championships in '06 and '07, it's not like they've got phenomenal basketball pedigree outside of those 2 years. But
Well,
I
but
mean,
they've got something that the others outside of Duke, as you correctly
one
pointed out,
back-to-back.
they
Yeah,
don't have. Those other two schools don't have. So, but it's going to be interesting. And I know CBS is excited because it's like, okay, it's four name brands, it's four number ones. And yeah, they're probably skipping like schoolgirls in New York right now because they're so happy.
probably so. Well, that puts a bow on this episode for Sports Charlotte. Be sure to check out our website, thecharlottepost.com, for all our sports reporting, as well as our news, our health, our arts and entertainment, and all other kinds of reporting is there. Be sure to subscribe to our sports newsletter. Get that every Thursday with several articles from the week. And be sure to subscribe, donate, give us your money, however you do desire.
Because we
And
appreciate it.
we do like the money. I'm sure all of y'all like y'all's money. But journalism, while it's free to you, not free to produce. So we would appreciate that. But for myself and Cam and Herb, hope y'all have a great Friday and a great weekend.
Thanks for watching and listening.